Hello. Yeah, so this is Peter Thomassen. I'm going to give a quick update on the document that we are working on in the ITF on how to best implement DS automation, which is automated DS provisioning. So I'm not going to say too much about these numbers. You all know what the DNS-OARC deployment is like. The thing I really want to say is on the bottom right. So even for zones that are assigned, where people go to DNS operators that have DNS-OARC enabled, or they actually turn on the DNS-OARC switch in Cloudflare, for example, less than 50% of these zones in total actually have a DS record. So even people who try to use DNS-OARC often fail. And it seems like the DNS-OARC, therefore, has an accessibility problem, right? Often people say DNS-OARC is too complicated and fragile and all of it. But it might just be an accessibility thing. It's easy to misconfigure. And automation can address this. I've talked about this many times, as many of you know, so I'll make it quick. One way to do it, to automatically provision DS records, is for the child operator to put a CDS or CDNS key record into the child zone next to the SOA record at the apex, which indicates the desired DS records or the DNS keys from which they desire the DS records to be computed. And then the parent can discover that. And if it's a DS update, you can just sign the new CDS record set with the old, with the key from the existing chain of trust that's already referenced in the DS record that exists. If it's new, there is an authentication method here from RFC 9615, so that's also covered. And so the question of how the parent discovers things in the child, it used to be scanning, but since last week or a week ago or 2 weeks ago, there is another RFC that allows the DNS operator to actually nudge the parent to tell them, hey, please take a look now, and you don't need to scan anymore every day, which is not very efficient. So this stuff, at least partially, has been implemented by a bunch of child-side operators and by some DNS software implementations like NotDNS and PowerDNS and Bind and so forth. And on the parent side, there's a bunch of ccTLDs who ingest that stuff. And yeah, so that's nice so far, and it actually works. And the gTLDs, at least some of them, also want to do it, but the problem with that is currently that there is some implementation choices you can make. For example, what happens if there is a registration lock? Should you continue this automation for updates or maybe not? So the gTLD space currently is struggling with these sort of degrees of freedom, and it has been proposed that maybe there should be guidelines how these things should be addressed, so that if you have a portfolio of a few gTLDs or domains across different gTLDs, you will be able to expect that things work the same way, essentially. So that is why there is this guideline document, and that's currently in the DNS-OARC group, and it essentially raises a few questions of how to do things and then gives recommendations. Yesterday we had a workshop here at the Internet Stiftelsen office, and with I think about 10 people, we discussed these things and made some changes, and this is mainly an update talk on what those changes were. And I will also go over the things that did not change very briefly, but those were things that essentially had rough consensus, at least in the room there, but we're of course interested in more feedback if you have any later. So there's 5 parts. The first one is section 2 of the document, validity checks and safety measures. Essentially, it says, if you ingest CDS or CDNS key records, don't apply the resulting DS record set if that would break anything. And by the way, if you apply it, because it doesn't break anything, still you should reduce the DS record set TTL for a while, so that if the zone owner wants to roll back, they can do it quickly. The next area was about reporting and transparency. So essentially, this is a little more detailed about when should you inform whom. And yeah, so this says you shouldn't inform humans too frequently. For example, if you do an automated rollover, there's no reason to inform anyone actually. And if there's an error, maybe you first want to inform the DNS operator through some report query or something, and only actually inform the domain owner if the problem persists and nothing gets really fixed. Maybe you also inform them if you initially turn on or off DNS-OARC, but not for rollovers. Now the question is, how do you actually inform humans? This is in bullet number 3. And this used to say that email should be used, mainly because, for lack of anything else. We then quickly discovered that this really depends on what the relationship is between the registrar and the domain owner, or what the registry is, and some sell things directly and blah, blah, blah. So this document maybe is not the place to say how that should be done. And it now says will be performed using the communication method established in accordance with the policies of the parent set entity that processes these CDS, CDNS key records. Maybe that can be wordsmithed a little bit, but so this has been made more vague, which is maybe good and bad. I don't know. Yeah, and then also number 5 for transparency said that through the portal where the domain owner can manage their domain, they should be able to inspect what the currently active DNS-OARC configuration is. And it also used to say that they should be able to look at the history of it, because it sometimes might be interesting to see when automated changes have happened. Now it seems like not all registries are keen to keep a history, and that is why this history thing has been turned into May, which I think is fine. Registration logs. Essentially, this says registration logs are meant to prevent malicious or accidental change. For example, if you set a server update prohibited EPP status, it essentially means that the registrar would have to do an out-of-band unlock thing if they want to change anything about, for example, the registrant or the name server set. Now, if the registry, however, does the DS automation, that is not an unintended or malicious change. It's actually an endorsed change because it's cryptographically authorized. And so these logs should not keep maintenance from happening. This actually had only green feedback yesterday. Next one is when there's multiple submitting parties. So this is like what happens if you have an online form and you can provision DS records and also automation is happening at the same time. Essentially, it says whenever something is an authorized change because it has been signed or because it went through an authenticated login form, you just apply and don't second guess what's most recent or anything. It is what the thing you get most recently is most recent. There is a special case when somebody manually removes a DS record set because maybe they want to turn off DNS-OARC because their DNS operator is shitty and doesn't turn it off for them, and they want to move somewhere else and do that insecurely because they see no other way. Then it would be bad if they turn it off and then automation would reinitialize it automatically. So if it's turned off manually, it should remain off. That's what number 3 here says, and yesterday we found that is apparently worded very confusingly, so we will reword it, but the recommendation is that. And also number 5 is that if the registry knows that the registrar does the automation, then they should not also be doing it, even though that's not a big problem because it would be no op change if both of them do the same sort of automation, but it's inefficient. Now this would require registries to know which registrar does what, and that is also complexity, so maybe that needs to be dropped, or maybe it should be a may, you know, although if that is a may, then you can also drop it. Anyway, so if you have feedback on that, that would be nice. And that brings us to the last part, CDS versus CDNS key. So the question is, what should be used? The child operator usually doesn't know which format the parent prefers ingesting. So recommendation 1 is they should just publish both and not to worry about keeping that sort of information around. That also would allow the parent to change the preference and the children not having to change anything. However, the change really only works if the parents also require the child to actually publish both of them, because if they do not publish both of them, let's say I only publish CDS and my parent likes CDS and tomorrow they like CDNS key, then it'll break for me. So if we want to keep open the possibility of switching the parent's preference, the parent actually needs to require publishing both, because otherwise that door is closed. I don't feel strongly at all about this. We can also drop it. It's just a suggestion. The question is whether the community eventually wants to be able to get rid of one of the 2 formats, which I think would be a nice goal, effectively. But also I understand why parents don't want to require publication of both if they only use one. So maybe we should drop that. This is particularly one that needs more discussion. So if you have any thoughts on that, that would be highly appreciated. And then we found that number 3 here was redundant with number 1b or whatever from section 2. So I remove it, and actually it seems like this is actually an acceptance check from section 2, or like an acceptance check. So maybe we should merge these sections or something. This is pretty much it. So if you have thoughts on this, let me know. Barbara is also here to discuss. And yeah, I can grant program supports us. And that's it.
Hi, Peter. Matthijs Mekking, I see. Can you go back to the last one with the crossed out stuff? Yeah, this one, yes. I was participating in the workshop of the meeting. It was actually quite nice, a different format. I really liked it. This last one, was it
You mean the orange or the green?
the green one, so on point 3, was it actually duplication or not? Because I interpreted it a different way, where here you would say that the CDS and the CDS key in the same zone that you publish would be consistent. So the CDS matches the CDS key that you published. Whereas in point 2, section 2 or something, you require consistency between the CDSs published by different providers.
Across authoritative name service, yes.
Yes, across.
Yes, which could be different providers. That's correct. So in wording, that is actually two different things. Thank you for catching that. I labeled it as a duplicate because they both refer to the same CDS consistency document, which actually covers both aspects.
Right.
So I think you're right, but I also think this is an acceptance check. We should move it to the other section and mention both aspects.
Okay. My personal opinion is that you should not move it, just remove it, by the way, but that's a different discussion, and I'll
I think removing is a special type of moving.
Touché.
Hello, Klaus Sarelion, Nikkate. Can you please go back one slide?
Yeah.
I think in the last sentence, you have to differ between the registrar and the DNS provider. Because if it's necessary that the registrar supports DNS-SEC, because if the DNS provider supports DNS-SEC and does all the onboarding and all the CDS stuff, maybe it's not necessary to have a registrar that supports DNS-SEC.
Okay, do you hear correctly that if the DNS operator on the child side does DNS-SEC and the registry does the automation, then you're suggesting the registrar would not have to support DNS-SEC, okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
or at least think about it.
In general, I agree. The problem with this is if the domain owner wants to move to a different DNS operator and for some reason can't do like a secure multi-signer transition, so they have to turn off DNS-SEC manually, but the registrar has no interface because they don't support DNS-SEC, then they can't turn it off.
They have to switch to a different registrar first.
Well, perhaps. The text says if it is known that they don't support it, right? So if you don't know that the registrar doesn't support it, maybe you can still do automation. But I'm just saying there is a shitty edge case hidden in here. Yeah, so let's talk about it offline, but I'm interested to see how this could be resolved.
Wow. Yeah. Hi, Dmitro Kochmanyuk.ua. I mean, I think this requires like a matrix because it has several assumptions, like the registry and registrar, EPP interface DS, client DS. Then the automation may be we scan for the DSs, we show them as found. The registry may not take action. So I think you need way more detailed than this because the automation may mean automatic collection of the DSs using CDS or automatic provisioning. Our registry does not ever take any input from registrants. We take them from from registrars, which take them through UI or whatever way, fax machine, from the client. We support EPP and we support DS. If you introduce CDS, we have either to allow the registrars to opt in. My point is that I can collaborate on that, but it's way more complicated than this. Client talks to registry, client talks to registrar, client publishes CDS, client publishes CDS key. It can be too many interactions. I think it needs to be like multiply triggers, and this workflow must be very detailed. And there's way more cases than you can imagine using wording like that.
So these 8,
especially for users who want to introduce CDS, don't have it, or CDS key in CZ, I know.
Yeah.
They wanted probably to move to CDS. I imagine, can speak for them. Imagine you want to support both. Maybe you want to shut one down. 2 automations running at the same time.
I'm very interested in guidelines that actually cover the the complete set of use cases, and these 8 CCTLDs that have implemented it apparently have covered it. So I'm really curious to talk to you later to see what's missing in your perspective.
Yeah, sure. Let's talk offline. Just find me and I'll be here at NetNode Day as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Talking about the switching off DNS-SEC, if you have a registrar that doesn't support DNS-SEC and you switch it on yourself, why would you need the registrar to switch it off? Why don't you switch it off yourself? CDS and CDNS key allow for that.
Because it could be that your DNS operator has disappeared except for the name servers, but they don't respond to your ticket and they don't put in the 0 CDS record. And you want to move away because they are shitty and don't respond, but you can't because you're stuck. Thank you. Enjoy lunch.